Welcome to Peachtree Injury Talk with attorney Jordan Jewkes.
Hey everybody, welcome back to an all-new episode of Peachtree Injury Talk with Jordan Jewkes. I'm your host, Mike Leon. Jordan is the founder of the Jewkes Firm, a Georgia-based personal injury firm. They're known for helping accident victims fight back against an often unfair system, let's be honest. And today's topic is all about low-speed accidents and why just because your car doesn't look badly damaged, it doesn't mean you aren't seriously hurt. Jordan, I want to get into this because this is something that I think anybody can relate to this. They've been in minor accidents. So can someone really be seriously injured in a minor car accident? I think that's the first misconception that we can start with.
Yeah, so a couple things that come to mind on that. And first, everyone's perception of how bad an accident is different. And something that I think is really, really important is just because you can't see a lot of visible damage does not necessarily mean that the wreck itself or the impact itself wasn't severe enough to cause injury. So the first thing is, just because there's not a lot of visible damage doesn't mean there's a severe impact. But the second thing is every body, right? Every person's body is built different, has different muscular structure and tissue. And so, Mike, if you and I were in the same car and both got rear-ended and there wasn't a lot of visible damage, you may walk away from that perfectly fine, but I may have a crick in my neck just because our bodies are built different. So yeah, of course there is, someone can have a very significant damage, certainly a permanent injury from what may initially appear to be a relatively low impact or low visible damage crash.
From those injuries that you were kind of briefly alluding to, what kind of injuries have you seen that are maybe the most common in these low impact collisions?
Yeah, when there is, well, of course it depends on what type of collision, meaning, was it a T-bone wreck? Was it a front end collision? Was it a rear end collision? But I would say the most common type of collision we experience at our firm or we observe is a rear end collision. And so very often someone stops at a light, the other car behind them isn't paying attention or the driver is, and they end up rear-ending the car in front of them. Well, what happens is there's usually an initial force forward. It causes the neck to go back, then forward again and back. And that sort of the force that generates that sort of movement in the neck and head really results in a whiplash type injury in the cervical or the neck. There's also an interesting phenomenon that happens when typically people have a seatbelt on, and when their body gets hit forward and back, that seatbelt kind of acts like a fulcrum, and it also can cause some injury to the low back as well. So the insurance companies love to say, well, Mike, if you got rear-ended, how is your low back damaged? How is your low back disc herniated? And it's usually because of that seatbelt kept your body in, and again, it acts like a fulcrum and damages to the low back. So I guess to answer your question, even on low impact cases, low visible damage, neck and low back injuries are definitely the most common.
Jordan, staying on the insurance companies, because you just brought them up, why do they assume that low damage means like there's no injury?
Because it's the path to least resistance for them. And it's just easy to stand in front of people and say, hey folks, here's a photo of the cars. There's no obvious visible damage. So how did it cause, the damage that the driver who got hit is claiming to their neck or back, as we see on this MRI, or, because of the medical treatment. It's just visually it makes sense for them. And so you have to have, science and a good doctor to explain, well, just because there's not damage to the car does not mean there's not damage to the body.
Right. Well, so let's stay on that because you kind of mentioned again the doctor there, science. So how would somebody prove that they're hurt when the vehicle doesn't show major damage? Are those two ways? Are there other ways to show that?
Yes, and this is the important part of it, and a lot of this has to do with the makeup of cars these days, believe it or not. Cars are more so now than ever are designed to be very safe, but also very flexible. Maybe that's the best word. And so if you look at a modern car, take any car built in the last 5 years, you could almost witness. I mean, you could probably do a search on YouTube to show a bumper being hit, that bumper going in and then bouncing back out. And it's almost like if you were to take a plastic bottle and you were to squeeze it in, or like a plastic soda bottle or Coke bottle, take the Coke out, squeeze that bottle in, and you're going to see, you can easily, with the energy of your thumbs and fingers, you can see the bottle go in. But just when you take that pressure off it, the bottle almost always expands back to where it was. And the same principle in a very, I mean, that's basic physics, but it's the same principle that applies to most bumper to bumper accidents. The bumpers essentially are designed to absorb the impact. Well, that doesn't mean that the car did not receive that energy from the car behind it, if that makes sense. And so there is always a transfer of energy from what they call the bullet car, or the car that hits, and the car that receives it. And it's just that cars are designed really well now to absorb that energy and to make it look like there really wasn't an impact, so that there's very few repairs afterwards.
In your estimation as a lawyer and the experience that you have, is it harder to get fair compensation in cases like this that are these low impact collisions?
Yeah, Mike, I'd say so, because there are just from sort of the, I guess, stigma, or the ability of the insurance companies to convince some people that, hey, if there is no impact or no visible damage to the car, that means there's no injury. But there's actually a lot of literature, scientific data, a lot of studies that have shown that even cars, a car or a vehicle that strikes another vehicle at 5 miles per hour can cause an injury to the driver or the occupants of the vehicle in front. And again, this is scientists, doctors getting together, doing test studies, crash test dummy tests, and putting the data on paper, and then having that data peer reviewed or reviewed by other similar scientists and medical doctors, and having that data published in scientific studies. So all that to say is there's plenty of science and literature that shows that even slow speed car wrecks can cause injuries to certain people.
Have you specifically yourself handled cases where a client maybe had some severe injuries from a minor looking crash, or appears to be a minor looking crash?
Yeah, I mean, all the time actually, and they're not always the easiest case to show for the reasons we've talked about, because the insurance company tends to fight those a little bit more. But when our clients come and say, "Hey, I didn't do anything wrong. I was rear-ended by someone. There's not a lot of damage to my vehicle." But if they're having real pain and they're a credible client, we will pursue that case. And it always helps when the client doesn't have pre-existing pain or symptoms in their neck and back, or hasn't been in a slew of other car wrecks in the past. But even then, sometimes someone is more susceptible to a low impact injury because of their pre-existing frailty, or because they were injured in a severe car wreck the year before. So again, I say all that to say every person is different and every situation is different.
So let me ask you, because you mentioned the handling some of these cases. So has somebody, or can somebody pursue a case if the damage to the vehicle in one of these low collision accidents is like under $1,000? Can they still pursue a case?
Yeah, I mean, again, every case is different, and the way that cars are designed now to absorb the impact and sort of go back to their normal state, that's actually fairly common. And sometimes what you do, or what you need to do, is go talk to the mechanic and have the mechanic take some photos, uh, during the repair process, or to get underneath the undercarriage and look, at any damage or signs of, lack of a better word, crunching between the bumper absorbers and the frame of the vehicle. And that usually tells a whole nother story. Just because there's maybe some paint chipping or some cracking on the bumper doesn't mean that impact wasn't severe. And so sometimes the actual repair bill itself isn't as helpful as photos of what happened to the car underneath the bumper is.
Speaking of photos, what role do diagnostic tools that are human based now, like an MRI or a CT scan. What role do those play in potentially validating your case if you've been injured in one of these accidents?
Yeah, I mean, they can play. So MRIs and photos, diagnostic imaging can play a very critical role in cases where there may be less visible damage to a car. And I would say if someone has had no pain symptoms, has not seen a doctor for neck or back ever, or leading up in the years leading up to the wreck, and then they get into what may be classified or called a low visible damage wreck. The very fact that they had no pain before, and then now that they're having pain after the wreck, to me, that's really good circumstantial evidence that the pain was caused by that collision that may have not a lot of visible damage to the cars. So those diagnostic studies can be very, very important.
Jordan, what advice would you give to someone right now? Maybe they've walked away from one of these crashes, these low impact collisions, but now they're starting to feel worse. What would be your advice to them?
My advice is always to get the medical treatment that you need, the medical treatment you deserve, but also call an attorney that you trust and is qualified to handle these types of cases. They can be very valuable, very, very good cases, and we'd be happy to evaluate those for you. And so if you're having pain from these and you feel like you may not have a case, reach out to an attorney, and hopefully that attorney will give you a free consultation. I know we will. But reach out to the attorney and discuss your options, and because you don't want to wait too long to try and pursue a case. With all things, the longer you wait, sometimes the harder it gets to prove it.
Jordan, thanks as always for the insights and analysis on all this.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Thanks for having me.
And thanks again to everybody out there for listening to Peachtree Injury Talk. If you've been in a minor accident and you aren't sure whether you have a case, don't assume you're fine just because your bumper is. You can visit jewkesfirm.com, Jewkes firm.com to connect with Jordan and his team. They'll give you the clarity and the legal support you need. Be sure to like and subscribe. Do us a favor, leave a review if you found today's episode helpful and useful. As always, I'm Mike Leon.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.